What if Naruto was in Inuyasha? So let's start the series. 12 years later. Kagome Higurashi woke before dawn. This was not a choice. It was simply the way of things at the shrine now. The servants rose early. The servants worked hard. The servants asked no questions. She slipped out of her small room, barely larger than a closet, tucked away behind the kitchen where no visitors would ever see it. Her muscles ached from yesterday's labor, hauling water, cleaning the main hall, scrubbing floors until her hands bled. But she did not complain. Complaining brought punishment. She had learned that lesson well. In the kitchen, she found the other servants already at work. An old woman named Hannah stirred a pot of rice porridge over the fire. Two younger girls chopped vegetables at a worn wooden table. "Good morning," Kagome whispered. Hannah glanced up, her wrinkled face softening briefly before hardening again. "You're late. Lady Kaguya wants the main hall cleaned before the morning prayers." Kagome bowed quickly. "I'll go now." She grabbed a bucket and cleaning cloths from the corner and slipped out the back door. The shrine grounds were beautiful in the pre-dawn light. Mist curled around the ancient trees. The sacred Gashinboku stood tall and proud, its massive branches reaching toward the pale sky. Somewhere nearby, a bird began to sing. Kagome allowed herself one moment to appreciate it. Then she got to work. The main hall was vast and cold. She knelt on the polished wooden floor, carefully wiping away every speck of dust. Her arms moved mechanically, her mind drifting to other places. 12 years since Aunt Kikyo died. 12 years since Lady Kaguya arrived. 12 years of slowly watching her family's legacy slip away. Her mother still lived, technically. But she was weak now, broken by years of Kaguya's subtle cruelty. She spent most days in her room, staring at nothing, speaking rarely. Her grandfather fared better, but only because Kaguya found his eccentric ramblings amusing. He was allowed to keep his title, his position, even as all real power was stripped away. And Kagome? Kagome was the forgotten one. The granddaughter of the shrine's nominal head. The niece of the legendary Miko Kikyo. And yet she lived as a servant, slept in a closet, wore clothes that other maids had discarded. Sometimes she wondered if anyone even remembered she existed. The morning prayers began at sunrise. Kagome worked through them, staying hidden in the shadows behind the main altar. She watched the worshippers come and go, wealthy merchants, local farmers, the occasional noble from the city. And always, at the center of it all, Lady Kaguya. The false priestess moved through the crowds like a queen. Her white robes flowed elegantly. Her pale face smiled beatifically. People bowed as she passed. They brought gifts and offerings. They spoke of her wisdom, her power, her holiness. If only they knew. After the prayers ended, Kagome slipped away to the stables. This was her secret refuge, the one place she could almost pretend was hers. The horses didn't care about status or bloodlines. They only cared about kindness. Her favorite was a chestnut mare named Hikari. "Good morning, girl," Kagome whispered, slipping into the stall. The horse nickered softly and pressed her warm nose against Kagome's cheek. "I know. I brought you something." She produced a small apple from her pocket, saved from yesterday's meager dinner. Hikari crunched it happily while Kagome brushed her coat and whispered secrets into her ears. "Someday," Kagome murmured, "I'm going to leave this place. Just ride away and never come back. Would you come with me?" Hikari's ear flicked, as if considering the question. Footsteps approached. Kagome tensed, then relaxed as she recognized the shuffling gait. Only one person walked like that. "Grandfather." The old man appeared in the stable doorway, his priest's robes slightly askew, his white hair sticking up in odd directions. Despite everything, Kagome smiled. "There you are, child," he said. "I've been looking everywhere. Lady Kaguya wants you in the main house." Kagome's smile faded. "Why?" "I don't know. But she didn't look pleased." "Wonderful." She kissed Hikari's nose and followed her grandfather toward the main house. The old man walked slowly, leaning on his cane, pausing occasionally to mutter about ancient traditions or the proper way to pickle vegetables. "Grandfather," Kagome said quietly, "do you ever think about Aunt Kikyo?" The old man stopped walking. For a long moment, he was silent. "Every day," he finally said. "Every single day." "What was she like? Really?" He turned to look at her, and for once his eyes were clear and sharp. "She was like you. Kind. Strong. Stubborn. She would have hated what's happened here." Kagome swallowed hard. Then why do you let it continue? Why don't you stop? He shook his head sadly. I am an old man, child. And Lady Kagaya is not what she appears. There are powers at work here that I cannot fight. Maybe I can. He studied her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. Maybe you can at that. They continued walking. Lady Kagaya awaited them in her private chambers, a lavish suite that had once belonged to Kikyo. Now it was filled with expensive furnishings, silk cushions, exotic artwork from distant lands. The false priestess sat on an elevated platform, sipping tea from a delicate porcelain cup. Two servants knelt nearby, heads bowed. Kagome knelt too. It was expected. Ah, Kagome. Kagaya's voice was silk and honey. So good of you to join us. I have a task for you. Yes, Lady Kagaya. I am hosting a gathering of nobles this evening. Important people from across the region. Everything must be perfect. Of course. Kagaya's eyes narrowed slightly. Do not interrupt me. Kagome bowed lower. Forgive me. You will oversee the preparations. The food, the decorations, the entertainment. If anything goes wrong. She let the sentence hang. Nothing will go wrong, Kagome said. Kagaya studied her for a long, uncomfortable moment. Then she waved her hand dismissively. Go. I expect perfection. Kagome backed out of the room, not rising until she was safely through the door. In the hallway, she let out a long breath. Her grandfather waited nearby. That went better than expected. She didn't hit me. Indeed. A good day. They shared a small, bitter smile. The gathering that evening was indeed perfect. Kagome made sure of it. She worked tirelessly, directing servants, checking every detail, solving problems before anyone else even noticed them. The food was exquisite. The decorations elegant. The entertainment, a group of traveling musicians, played beautifully. Lady Kagaya held court like a queen. The nobles fawned over her. They praised her wisdom, her grace, her beauty. They brought gifts and made promises. And Kagaya accepted it all with practiced humility, as if she truly were the holy priestess she pretended to be. Kagome watched from the shadows. Among the guests, she noticed several familiar faces. Lord Heishi of the Hyuga clan, stiff and proper in his formal robes. His daughters, Hinata and Hanabi, both looking uncomfortable in the crowded room. Various minor lords and their retinues. But one face stood out. A young man, perhaps 17 or 18, standing apart from the crowd. Dark hair. Dark eyes. Features so sharp they could cut glass. He wore fine clothes but no clan markings, and he watched the proceedings with an expression of barely concealed boredom. Occasionally, other nobles approached him. He dismissed them with cold efficiency. Kagome found herself staring. You shouldn't look at him too long, a voice whispered. She jumped. A servant girl stood nearby, one of the kitchen maids, barely 15, with bright eyes and a mischievous smile. Who is he? Kagome asked quietly. That's Prince Sasuke. Of the Uchiha clan. The girl lowered her voice further. They say he's difficult. Refuses to marry. Argues with his father constantly. The nobles gossip about him constantly. Why is he here? His father sent him. To observe, they say. To learn diplomacy. The girl giggled. He looks more like he's learning how to scowl. Kagome glanced back at the prince. He had moved to a corner of the room, away from the crowd, and was staring out a window at the night sky. There was something in his expression that she recognized. Loneliness. The same loneliness she felt every day. She looked away quickly. It wasn't her place to notice such things. It wasn't her place to notice anything. The evening continued. The nobles drank and talked and schemed. Lady Kagaya charmed them all. And Prince Sasuke stood in his corner, watching the stars. Near midnight the guests began to depart. Kagome helped clean up, working alongside the other servants until her hands ached and her back screamed in protest. By the time she finally stumbled to her tiny room, she could barely keep her eyes open. She fell asleep instantly. And dreamed of dark eyes staring out a window. The next morning, chaos erupted. Kagome woke to shouting. She pulled on her worn clothes and ran outside, following the noise to the stable yard. A crowd had gathered. Servants, guards, even Lady Kagaya herself stood staring at the stables. What happened? Kagome asked, pushing through the crowd. Then she saw. The stable door hung open. Several stalls stood empty, and her heart stopped. Hikari was gone. My horse, Lady Kaguya said coldly. Stolen in the night. By a prince, no less. A guard stepped forward, bowing nervously. We tracked him, my lady. He rode east, toward the Uchiha territories. It appears Prince Sasuke fled the palace last night and took the horse from our stables. Silence fell. Then Kagome did something stupid. Wait, she said. Prince Sasuke? The one who was here last night. All eyes turned to her. Lady Kaguya's gaze was ice. You have something to say, servant? Kagome's mouth opened. Words tried to come out. She thought about Hikari, gentle, kind Hikari, being ridden hard by a stranger, possibly mistreated, possibly. He took my horse, she said. The words hung in the air. Someone laughed. Others stared. Lady Kaguya's expression shifted from cold to curious. Your horse? The false priestess smiled thinly. You claim ownership of an animal that belongs to this shrine? To me? Kagome's face burned. She had overstepped. She knew it. But she couldn't take it back now. Hikari. I raised her. I care for her. She's the only. Enough. Kaguya's voice cut like a blade. The horse is gone. The prince is gone. There is nothing to be done. But. I said enough? Kagome fell silent. Her hands clenched at her sides. Kaguya turned away, dismissing the matter entirely. The crowd began to disperse. Servants returned to their duties. Guards went back to their posts. Kagome stood alone in the stable yard, staring at Hikari's empty stall. Something inside her broke. And something else began to form. 2 days passed. Kagome went through the motions of her duties mechanically. Clean. Sweep. Fetch. Carry. But her mind was elsewhere. Hikari was gone. The one bright spot in her miserable existence had been stolen by some spoiled prince who probably didn't even care about her. She hated him. She hated all of them. On the 3rd day, her grandfather found her in the kitchen garden, pulling weeds with unnecessary violence. Child, he said gently, there's something you need to see. She looked up, ready to refuse. But his expression stopped her. He looked excited? Nervous? What is it? Come with me. He led her to his private room, a cluttered space filled with ancient scrolls, mysterious artifacts, and decades of accumulated clutter. He motioned for her to sit, then produced a small bag from his sleeve. This was left at the shrine gate this morning, he said. Addressed to you. Kagome stared. To me? Who would? She opened the bag. Gold coins spilled into her lap. More gold than she had ever seen in her life. Enough to buy a dozen horses. Enough to change everything. There was also a note, written in elegant script. For the horse. I didn't know she was yours. My apologies. S.U. Kagome read the note 3 times. Her hands were shaking. The prince, she whispered. He paid for Hikari. Her grandfather nodded slowly. It seems he's not entirely without honor. Kagome stared at the gold. At the note. At the gold again. An idea began to form in her mind. A dangerous idea. A desperate idea. Grandfather, she said quietly, how much would it cost to buy someone out of slavery? The old man's eyes widened. Kagome, what are you planning? She looked up at him, and for the first time in years, there was fire in her eyes. I'm going to save you. 3 days later, Kagome stood at the edge of the slave market in the city of Edo. She barely recognized herself. The gold coins had purchased more than freedom. They had purchased a transformation. Fine silk robes in deep blue and silver. Elegant hair ornaments. Delicate sandals. A painted fan held gracefully in one hand. She looked like a noblewoman. She felt like an imposter. But she had no choice. 3 days ago, while she had been mourning Hikari, disaster had struck. Her grandfather, eccentric, beloved, foolish grandfather, had gone to the city to sell some of his authentic demon relics. The relics were, as always, fake. But one of them had been mistaken for something real by the wrong person. A local crime lord had decided the old man was cheating him. Now grandfather sat in a slave pen somewhere in this wretched place, waiting to be sold. Waiting to disappear forever. Kagom's hands trembled inside her sleeves. She forced them still. You can do this, she told herself. You've survived 12 years of Kagaya. You can survive one day of pretending. The slave market occupied a large open square near the city's edge. Wooden platforms lined three sides, each displaying human merchandise. Men, women, children, all staring blankly at the crowds, their faces empty of hope. Buyers circulated among the platforms. Wealthy merchants, minor nobles, representatives of large households looking for cheap labor. Kagome walked among them, her face hidden behind her fan. She searched every platform, every face, every hopeless expression. Finally, near the back corner, she found him. Grandfather sat chained to a post on a small platform. His priest's robes were torn and dirty. A bruise darkened one cheek. But his eyes, those strange, knowing eyes, were still sharp. He was talking. Even now, even in chains, he was talking. To the other slaves. To the guards. To anyone who would listen. About shrine traditions. About ancient rituals. About the proper way to pickle vegetables. Kagome's heart clenched. She wanted to run to him. To throw her arms around him. To tell him everything would be okay. But she couldn't. Not yet. A slave auctioneer mounted the platform beside grandfather. Next lot. Old man, useless for labor, but claims to be a Shinto priest. Might know some ceremonies. Starting bid 5 silver pieces. Silence. No one bid. The auctioneer frowned. 4 silver. Surely someone needs a priest? More silence. Kagome stepped forward. 10 gold pieces. Every head in the market turned. The auctioneer's jaw dropped. 10 gold? For this old fool? Kagome lowered her fan just enough to reveal cold, aristocratic eyes. Did I stutter? Behind her fan, her heart was pounding so hard she thought it might burst. The auctioneer recovered quickly. Sold! Sold to the noble lady for 10 gold! Guards dragged grandfather off the platform. He was staring at Kagome with an expression of complete bewilderment. Wait, he said. Who? Kagome silenced him with a look. Not another word until we're away from here. She paid the gold, all of it, and led her grandfather through the crowded streets. Her legs felt like jelly. Every step was a miracle. Every moment someone might recognize her, might see through her disguise, might. Kagome? She froze. Grandfather's voice was barely a whisper. Is it really you? She glanced at him. Then, very slightly, she nodded. His eyes widened. Then, miraculously, he began to laugh. My granddaughter, he whispered. My brilliant, wonderful granddaughter. You came for me. Not here, she hissed. Wait until we're safe. They walked on. Behind them, in the shadows of the market, dark eyes watched them go. Sasuke Uchiha had not intended to stay in Edo. After fleeing his father's palace, he had ridden hard for 2 days, putting as much distance as possible between himself and the endless political machinations of the Uchiha clan. The horse he'd taken, a beautiful chestnut mare, had served him well. He'd left the gold as payment. It was the least he could do. But something had drawn him to the city. Boredom, perhaps. Or curiosity. Or simply the need to be among people after days of solitude. He had found the slave market by accident. And then he had found her. The woman from before. Not the servant girl this time. No, this was someone entirely different. A noblewoman in silk and silver, moving through the crowd with the confidence of a queen. She had purchased an old man for 10 gold pieces, an absurd price, and walked away as if she did this every day. But Sasuke had seen her hands tremble. He had seen the fear behind her eyes. And he had recognized something familiar in that fear. So he followed. Through the crowded streets. Past the merchant stalls. Into the poorer districts where nobles rarely ventured. She moved quickly, expertly, as if she knew these streets intimately. Finally, she stopped at a small, rundown inn near the city wall. Sasuke waited. An hour passed. Then another. Finally, the woman emerged, but not as a woman. She wore simple servant's clothes now, her hair pulled back in a plain style. The old man walked beside her, leaning on her arm. They looked like nothing. Nobodies. But Sasuke knew better. He followed them all the way to the city gates, watched them pass through, watched them disappear down the eastern road. Then he turned back toward the city. He had questions. And he intended to find answers. That night, Kagome and her grandfather slept in a small farming village, far from Edo. They had no money now, the gold was all gone, but a kind farmer had let them sleep in his barn in exchange for help with the morning chores. Kagome lay in the hay, staring at the stars through a gap in the roof. "You were amazing today," grandfather whispered from nearby. "I was terrified." "That's what makes it amazing." She was quiet for a long moment. Then, "What do we do now?" Grandfather was silent too. When he spoke, his voice was heavier than she'd ever heard it. "We go back." "Back? To the shrine? To Kagaya?" Kagome sat up. "She'll kill us. Both of us." "Perhaps. But your mother is still there. And our home. And..." He paused. "And there are things hidden there that Kagaya must never find." "What things?" He didn't answer directly. Instead, he said, "Your Aunt Kikyo left behind more than memories. She left secrets. Powerful secrets. Secrets that could change everything." Kagome stared at him. "Grandfather, what are you talking about?" But he only shook his head. "Not yet. Soon. But not yet." Kagome lay back down, staring at the stars. Her heart was still pounding from the day's events. She had done it. She had actually done it. She had rescued her grandfather from slavery using nothing but courage and a stolen horse's payment. For the first time in years, she felt powerful. For the first time in years, she felt alive. Somewhere in the darkness, she thought she heard Hikari's gentle whinny. She smiled. And fell asleep. Sasuke could not stop thinking about her. It was ridiculous. He was a prince of the Uchiha clan, heir to one of the most powerful families in the land. He had no business obsessing over a mysterious woman he'd glimpsed twice in passing. But he couldn't help it. There was something about the way she moved, the way she held herself, the fear in her eyes that she fought so hard to hide, the courage it must have taken to walk into that slave market alone. Who was she? He spent days investigating. The shrine where he'd stolen the horse was called Higurashi. It was run by a priestess named Kagaya, beautiful, powerful, and utterly unhelpful when Sasuke came asking questions. "The horse?" she said smoothly, when he appeared at her door. "Think nothing of it, your highness. A small matter. Hardly worth your attention." "I left payment," Sasuke said. "For a servant girl. The horse was hers." Kagaya's eyes flickered. Just for an instant. But Sasuke caught it. "Ah. Kagome." The priestess smiled. "A simple servant. She was quite upset about her horse, I'm told. But your gold has more than compensated her." "Where is she now?" "Gone, I'm afraid. She ran away a few days ago. With her grandfather, the old fool." Kagaya's smile didn't reach her eyes. "I'm sure they won't last long on their own. The world is harsh to those without protection." Sasuke studied her. He didn't believe a word she said. But he nodded politely and left. Over the following weeks, Sasuke's obsession grew. He sent agents to search for the woman named Kagome. He tracked rumors and whispers. He visited villages and towns, showing her likeness to anyone who would look. Nothing. It was as if she had vanished from the world. Meanwhile, his father's messengers grew more insistent. "Return to the palace. Fulfill your duty. Marry Hinata Hyuga and secure the alliance." Sasuke ignored them all. Let them wait. He had something more important to find. 3 weeks after the rescue, Kagome and her grandfather returned to the shrine. They came at night, slipping through the shadows like ghosts. Kagome knew every path, every hiding place, every blind spot in the guards' patrols. They reached the shrine buildings undetected. But inside, everything had changed. Lady Kagaya's private chambers were filled with new treasures. Strange artifacts from distant lands. Scrolls written in languages Kagome didn't recognize. Maps marked with mysterious symbols. And in the center of it all, Kagaya herself sat in meditation. Her eyes opened as Kagome crept past. "Welcome home," she said softly. Kagome froze. Kagaya rose gracefully, her white robes flowing around her like mist. "Did you think I wouldn't notice?" Did you think I wouldn't know the moment you returned? How did you? I know everything that happens in this shrine. Kaguya moved closer. I know when birds nest in the eaves. I know when mice burrow in the walls. And I certainly know when a disobedient servant sneaks back into my domain. Kagome's grandfather stepped forward. Leave her alone. This is my fault. Silence, old man. Kaguya waved her hand, and grandfather collapsed as if struck. He lay on the floor, gasping, unable to move. Grandfather! Kagome rushed to his side. He's not dead, Kaguya said calmly. Merely incapacitated. Consider it a warning. Kagome looked up at her, eyes blazing. What do you want? Want? Kaguya laughed softly. I want many things, child. Power. Influence. Control over the royal courts. But what I want from you is simple: obedience. You will return to your duties. You will pretend nothing happened. And you will never, ever try to leave again. And if I refuse? Kaguya's expression hardened. Then your grandfather dies. Your mother dies. Everyone you've ever loved dies slowly and painfully. And you will watch. Kagome's hands clenched into fists. 12 years of abuse. 12 years of servitude. 12 years of swallowing her anger and pretending to be weak. She was so tired of pretending. But she looked at her grandfather, gasping on the floor. She thought of her mother, broken and fragile in her room. She thought of all the people who depended on her, who would suffer if she failed. Fine, she whispered. I'll obey. Kaguya smiled. I knew you'd see reason. She released her hold on grandfather, who gasped and sat up, coughing. Return to your duties in the morning, Kaguya said. We have much work to do. The royal festival approaches, and I have plans. She glided away, disappearing into the darkness of her chambers. Kagome helped her grandfather to his feet. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. He shook his head weakly. Don't be sorry, child. Be patient. Your time will come. They crept away to their small rooms. But Kagome couldn't sleep. She lay awake all night, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Kaguya's words. The royal festival approaches. Plans? Whatever Kaguya was planning, it couldn't be good. And Kagome had a terrible feeling that she was going to be caught in the middle of it. The royal festival was the social event of the year. Nobles from across the land gathered at the Uchiho Palace to celebrate the autumn harvest, renew alliances, and scheme against their enemies. It was a week of feasts, ceremonies, and endless political maneuvering. This year, everyone knew something important would happen. Prince Sasuke would finally choose a bride. Or rather, Prince Sasuke's father would finally force him to choose a bride. Sasuke stood in his chambers, staring out the window at the arriving guests. Carriages filled the courtyard below. Nobles in their finest robes bowed and smiled and pretended to like each other. He hated all of it. You can't avoid them forever, a voice said. Sasuke turned. His mother stood in the doorway, a quiet woman with tired eyes and a gentle smile. I can try, he said. Mikoto Uchiha crossed the room and stood beside her son. Your father means well, you know. My father means to use me as a bargaining chip. All marriages among nobles are bargaining chips. That's how the world works. Sasuke's jaw tightened. Then the world is wrong. Mikoto sighed. You're so much like your father at that age. Stubborn. Idealistic. Certain you know better than everyone else. I don't. Let me finish. She touched his arm gently. Your father was also forced into a marriage he didn't want. With me. And while it wasn't easy at first, we grew to love each other. Deeply. Truly. Sasuke was silent. Love can grow in strange soil, Mikoto continued. If you let it. If you give it a chance. I don't love Hinata Hyuga. You don't know her. Not really. Sasuke turned back to the window. It doesn't matter. I won't be forced into anything. His mother studied him for a long moment. Then she said something unexpected. There's a woman, isn't there? Sasuke's heart stuttered. What? I know, my son. You've been different lately. Distracted. Obsessed. Your agents have been searching for someone. Sasuke said nothing. Who is she? I don't know. The words came out before he could stop them. I don't even know her name. Not really. I saw her twice. Once at a shrine, where she was dressed as a servant. Once at a slave market, where she was dressed as a noblewoman. She rescued an old man, her grandfather, I think. And then she disappeared. Mikoto was quiet for a long moment. A servant who dresses as a noble, she murmured. A woman brave enough to walk into a slave market alone. Interesting. She's more than interesting. Yes. Mikoto smiled slightly. I can see that. She left him alone with his thoughts. Sasuke stared out the window at the arriving guests, but he didn't see them. He saw dark hair and fierce eyes. He saw courage hidden beneath fear. He saw a mystery he couldn't solve. And he knew, with absolute certainty, that he would never stop searching for her. Far from the royal palace, in the wild lands beyond human territory, something ancient was stirring. The land of demons had been quiet for centuries. The great Yukai lords slept in their hidden fortresses. The lesser demons hid in the shadows, afraid to challenge human expansion. The barrier between worlds held firm. But barriers weaken over time. And something was coming. Kagome first heard the rumors from traveling merchants who passed through the shrine. Demons in the east, they whispered. Attacking villages. Burning farms. The lords are sending soldiers, but the soldiers don't come back. Worse in the north, others added. Whole towns disappeared overnight. The Yukai are gathering. Forming armies. Lady Kagaya listened to these rumors with an expression of mild interest. How interesting, she said. The old powers are awakening. Then she returned to her preparations for the festival. But Kagome noticed something. Kagaya's interest wasn't casual. It was hungry. A week later, a messenger arrived at the shrine. He was a ninja, one of the famous shinobi from the hidden villages. Young, perhaps 16, with bright blue eyes and wild blonde hair. He wore a forehead protector with a leaf symbol, and he moved with an energy that seemed barely contained. I'm looking for Lady Kagaya, he announced. I have a message from the Hokage. Kagome was sweeping the courtyard. She looked up, surprised. The boy noticed her. Hey! You work here? Can you take me to the head priestess? Before Kagome could answer, Kagaya appeared in the main hall doorway. I am Lady Kagaya. Her voice was cool. What message does the Hokage send? The boy Naruto, he called himself, bowed quickly. The Hokage requests your assistance, my lady. There have been incidents. Demons attacking border villages. The usual shinobi methods aren't working. We need someone with spiritual power. Kagaya's eyes glittered. I see. And what does the Hokage offer in return? Protection. Resources. Whatever you need. Kagaya considered. Tell the Hokage I will consider his request. I have commitments here, the royal festival approaches. But perhaps I can spare an assistant. She glanced at Kagome. Cold dread filled Kagome's stomach. No, she whispered. Please, no. Kagaya smiled. My servant Kagome will accompany you to the land of demons. She knows the old rituals. She can assist with spiritual matters. But... Pack your things, Kagaya interrupted. You leave at dawn. That night, Kagome sat in her tiny room, staring at the wall. She was being sent to die. She knew it. The land of demons was dangerous, lethally so. Kagaya was getting rid of her without the mess of murder. Unless this was an opportunity. The land of demons was far from the shrine, far from Kagaya's influence, far from everything. Maybe she could escape. Maybe she could finally be free. She began to pack. Naruto Uzumaki was not what Kagome expected. He was loud, obnoxious, constantly hungry. He talked endlessly about becoming Hokage someday, about proving everyone wrong, about never giving up. But beneath the noise, Kagome sensed something else. Loneliness. The same loneliness she knew so well. You're staring, Naruto said on the second day of their journey. Kagome looked away quickly. Sorry. I was just thinking. About what? About how you remind me of someone. Naruto grinned. Someone amazing, I hope. Someone lonely. His grin faded. For just a moment, his eyes were serious. Then the mask returned. Everyone's lonely sometimes, he said. The trick is finding people who make it better. Kagome considered this. Have you found them? Naruto was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, a real smile, warm and genuine. Yeah, I think I have. They walked on in comfortable silence. The land of demons was everything the rumors promised and worse. The sky was permanently gray. The trees were twisted and dead. Strange noises echoed through the mist, howls, screams, whispers that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Naruto moved carefully, kunai in hand. Kagome followed close behind, her senses stretched to their limits. They found the first village on the third day. Or what was left of it. The buildings were crushed. The ground was scorched. And everywhere, there were bones. Kagome's stomach turned. She had to look away. Who could do this? Naruto whispered. Kagome forced herself to examine the scene. The burns weren't from fire, they were too precise, too controlled. And the bones, they were clean. Picked clean. This wasn't random, she said. This was organized. Deliberate. Naruto's jaw tightened. We need to find whoever did this. And stop them. They pressed on. Deep in the land of demons, in a fortress carved from living rock, a meeting was taking place. Yokai lords from across the land had gathered. Great beasts with ancient names and older grudges. They sat in a circle, their power crackling in the air like lightning. The barrier weakens, one said. Soon we can cross freely into human lands. The human ninja grows stronger, another warned. They have weapons now. Techniques. They are not the easy prey they once were. Then we must strike first. Strike hard. Destroy their villages before they can unite against us. A voice cut through the debate. Patience. All eyes turned to the figure at the head of the circle. A demon lord unlike any other. White fur. Golden eyes. An aura of power so immense it made the others tremble. Sesomaru, lord of the western lands, regarded the assembled yokai with cold disinterest. Rushing into war is foolish, he said. The humans have many enemies. Let them fight each other first. Weaken themselves. Then we strike. And in the meantime? In the meantime, we watch. We wait. And we prepare. The meeting continued. But outside, in the shadows, something else watched. Something that had followed Naruto and Kagome all the way from the border. Something that would change everything. The royal festival began with a grand procession. Nobles in elaborate robes paraded through the streets of the capital. Musicians played. Dancers performed. The common people cheered and threw flowers. At the center of it all, Prince Sasuke rode on a white horse, his expression carefully neutral. He looked magnificent. Dark hair flowing. Dark eyes blazing. The crowds loved him. He hated every moment. Behind him came the noble families, the Hyuga, the Aburame, the Nara, the Akimichi. Each clan displayed their wealth and power, competing for status and influence. And at the very end, representing the spiritual world, came Lady Kaguya. She rode in a palanquin carried by 8 servants, her white robes glowing in the autumn sunlight. People bowed as she passed. They whispered prayers and reached out to touch her hem. She smiled graciously at them all. But her eyes were fixed on the prince. That evening, the first formal ball began. Sasuke stood in the great hall, surrounded by eligible young women and their ambitious parents. They smiled at him. They flattered him. They offered him everything a prince could want. He wanted none of it. Your Highness. A soft voice at his elbow. He turned. Hinata Hyuga stood before him, her pale eyes downcast, her hands clasped nervously. She wore an elegant blue kimono, and her dark hair was arranged in an elaborate style. Lady Hinata, Sasuke bowed formally. I hope you are enjoying the festival. It's enjoyable. An awkward silence. Hinata's fingers twisted together. I know this is difficult. The expectations. The pressure. She took a breath. I understand if you don't want this marriage. I don't want to be forced on anyone. Sasuke studied her. There was something genuine in her words. Something sincere. Thank you, he said quietly. That means more than you know. Hinata looked up briefly, a small smile crossing her face. Then she bowed and retreated to her family's corner. Sasuke watched her go. She wasn't terrible, he admitted. Kind, actually. Gentle. Not at all like the scheming nobles he usually dealt with. But she wasn't the woman he couldn't forget. Across the ballroom, Lady Kaguya watched the interaction with narrowed eyes. This was not going according to plan. Her student, Tsubaki, stood nearby, a beautiful young priestess with perfect manners and empty eyes. She was supposed to be the one catching the prince's attention tonight. Instead, Sasuke had barely glanced at her. "Patience," Kaguya murmured. "The night is young." She glided across the ballroom, drawing admiring glances as she passed. Men bowed. Women curtsied. Even the prince's father, Lord Fugaku, acknowledged her with a nod. "Lady Kaguya, your presence honors us." "The honor is mine, Lord Fugaku." She smiled warmly. "Your son is impressive. A true prince." Fugaku's expression darkened slightly. "He is stubborn. Like his mother." "Ah, but stubbornness can be channeled. Directed toward useful ends." Kaguya's eyes glittered. "I have some experience with difficult young people." Fugaku considered her. "You speak of your servant? The one who ran away?" She returned. "They always do." Kaguya's smile didn't waver. "But we're not here to discuss servants. We're here to discuss alliances. Marriages. The future of your clan." "And you have someone in mind?" "My student Tsubaki. Beautiful. Talented. Devoted." Kaguya gestured, and Tsubaki glided forward, bowing gracefully. "She would make an excellent wife for your son." Fugaku studied Tsubaki with a practiced eye. "She's suitable. But the Hyuga alliance is stronger. Politics can change. Alliances can shift. But a wife who shares your son's spiritual interests, who understands the deeper mysteries of the world." Kaguya let the implication hang. Fugaku was silent for a long moment. "I'll consider it," he finally said. Kaguya bowed gracefully. "That's all I ask?" As she glided away, Tsubaki whispered, "He didn't agree." "He will." Kaguya's voice was cold. "They always do." 3 days into the festival, Sasuke escaped. He slipped away from the endless parties and ceremonies, finding his way to a small garden hidden behind the palace. Moonlight filtered through the cherry trees. A small stream burbled quietly. Peace. Finally. He sat on a stone bench and stared at the stars. His father's words echoed in his mind. Duty. Responsibility. The clan's future. Over and over, the same messages. Why couldn't they understand? He didn't want to be a pawn. He didn't want to be used. He wanted. Footsteps. Sasuke tensed, reaching for the sword at his belt. But the figure that emerged from the shadows was not an assassin. It was a servant girl. She wore simple clothes, and her dark hair was pulled back in a practical style. She moved quietly, carefully, as if trying not to be noticed. She froze when she saw him. They stared at each other. And Sasuke's heart stopped. It was her. The woman from the shrine. The woman from the slave market. The woman he'd been searching for all these weeks. "You," he breathed. Kagome's eyes widened. She turned to run. "Wait." Sasuke was on his feet, moving toward her. "Please, don't go." She hesitated. Her back was to him, but he could see her trembling. "How did you find me?" she whispered. "I didn't. I mean, I've been looking, but..." He stopped, taking a breath. "I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to talk." Kagome turned slowly. In the moonlight, her face was pale, her eyes wary. "Talk about what?" Sasuke spread his hands, showing he was unarmed. "About you. About why you were at the shrine dressed as a servant, then at the slave market dressed as a noble. About why you ran. About..." He hesitated. "About everything." Kagome studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, some of the tension left her shoulders. "You're the prince," she said. "The one who stole my horse." "Your horse?" Sasuke winced. "Right. About that. I really am sorry. I didn't know she belonged to anyone." "You left gold." "It was the least I could do." Kagome's lips twitched. Almost a smile. "It was enough. More than enough. I used it to save my grandfather." "The old man at the slave market?" "Yes." Sasuke nodded slowly. "I saw you that day. You were incredible. Walking in there alone, facing down those guards, buying his freedom like it was nothing." It wasn't nothing. I was terrified. But you did it anyway. They stood in silence, the stream burbling quietly beside them. Why are you here? Kagome finally asked. At the palace, I mean. Shouldn't you be at the ball, choosing a bride? Sasuke's expression darkened. I don't choose brides. My father chooses them for me. But you're the prince. Which means I'm a pawn. He sat back down on the bench. A piece to be moved around a political board. Marry this one for an alliance. Befriend that one for trade agreements. Never once asking what I want. Kagome hesitated. Then, slowly, she sat beside him. I know what that's like, she said quietly. Being used. Being a pawn. Sasuke looked at her. Tell me. And she did. She told him about Kikyo, her aunt, the legendary Miko who had died 12 years ago. She told him about Kagaya's arrival, the slow takeover of the shrine, the years of abuse and servitude. She told him about her mother, broken and silent. Her grandfather, eccentric but loving. The way she had learned to hide her strength, to pretend to be weak, to survive. Sasuke listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long time. Your life, he finally said, makes mine look easy. Kagome laughed softly. I doubt that. I'm serious. You've been fighting every day just to survive. And you're still fighting. Still hoping. Still. He trailed off. Still what? Still alive. Really alive. Not just going through the motions. Kagome considered this. What else is there? I don't know. Sasuke looked up at the stars. But I'd like to find out. They sat together in the moonlight, two lonely souls who had somehow found each other. Neither noticed the figure watching from the shadows. Lady Kagaya returned to her chambers in a fury. She had seen them, her servant and the prince, sitting together in the garden like old friends, talking, laughing. This was unacceptable. Her plans depended on Sasuke marrying Tsubaki, on the Uchiha alliance securing her influence over the royal court, on everything proceeding exactly as she had arranged. Kagome was ruining everything. Again. Kagaya paced her chambers, her white robes swirling behind her. Servants cowered in corners, afraid to draw her attention. This cannot continue, she murmured. The girl must be dealt with. Permanently. But killing Kagome outright would raise questions. The prince was interested in her now. If she disappeared, he might investigate. No. Something more subtle was needed. Something that would remove Kagome from the equation while keeping the prince's attention focused elsewhere. Kagaya's eyes glittered. The land of demons. Kagome was supposed to travel there soon, a mission from the Hokage. Dangerous. Deadly. If something happened to her there, well, accidents happened. Demons were unpredictable. Perfect. Kagaya smiled. Summon my student, she ordered. I have instructions for her. In the land of demons, something ancient stirred. Deep beneath the fortress of the Yukai lords, in a chamber sealed for centuries, a being of immense power began to wake. Its name had been forgotten, its origins lost to time, but its hunger remained. It had slept through the rise and fall of empires, through wars and peace and wars again, through the birth of the shinobi villages and the spread of human civilization. But now, something called to it. A presence. A power. Familiar. Ancient. Dangerous. The being opened its eyes. And the earth trembled. Naruto felt it first. They were camped at the edge of the demon lands, preparing to return to human territory. The mission was complete. They had gathered information, mapped demon movements, identified potential threats. But as Naruto sat by the fire, he felt something wrong. The hairs on his arms stood up. His stomach clenched. The ninetails inside him stirred restlessly. What's wrong? Kagome asked, noticing his expression. I don't know. Naruto stood, scanning the darkness. Something's coming. Something big. The ground shook. Trees swayed. Birds erupted from the forest in panicked flocks. In the distance, something roared, a sound so deep and powerful it seemed to come from the earth itself. Kagome grabbed her bow. What is that? I don't know, but we need to move. Now. They ran. Behind them, the darkness churned. Shapes moved in the shadows, demons, hundreds of them, fleeing something even more terrible. Naruto grabbed Kagome's hand, pulling her faster. His heart pounded. The Nine-Tails voice whispered in his mind, "Run, boy. Run or die." They burst from the forest just as the ground behind them collapsed. A massive crater opened, swallowing trees, rocks, everything. And from the crater rose something. It had no clear form. It was shadow and light, solid and insubstantial, ancient and newborn. Eyes opened in its depths, hundreds of them, thousands, all staring. "The old one," Kagome whispered. "The stories, they were real." Naruto didn't ask what she meant. He just kept running. Sesshomaru felt it too. In his fortress, surrounded by his loyal retainers, the Lord of the Western Lands went very still. "Master?" Jaken, his imp-like servant, looked up nervously. "What is it?" Sesshomaru didn't answer. His golden eyes were fixed on the distance, on something only he could perceive. The old one was awake. This changed everything. "Prepare," he ordered. "The balance shifts." Back in the human lands, the royal festival continued. Sasuke danced with noblewomen he didn't care about. He smiled at politicians he despised. He nodded through speeches and ceremonies and endless small talk. But his mind was elsewhere. With her. Kagome. She had left the palace 2 days ago, sent on some mission to the demon lands. He hadn't been able to say goodbye. He hadn't even known she was leaving until she was gone. Now he couldn't stop thinking about her. The way she talked. The way she moved. The way her eyes lit up when she laughed. He had never met anyone like her. Dwelling on something? Sasuke turned. Hinata Hyuga stood nearby, watching him with gentle concern. "Nothing important," he said. Hinata's eyes flickered. "You're a terrible liar, Prince Sasuke." Despite himself, Sasuke almost smiled. "So I've been told." Hinata moved closer, lowering her voice. "It's the servant girl, isn't it? The one from the garden?" Sasuke tensed. "How do you know about that?" "I saw you. The first night." Hinata's expression was sympathetic. "I didn't mean to spy. I was just walking. Trying to escape the crowds. And I saw you two together." Sasuke said nothing. "She's beautiful," Hinata continued quietly. "And you look at her the way my father looks at my mother. Like she's the only person in the world." "She's not." Sasuke stopped. "She's a servant. I'm a prince. Nothing can come of it." "That's not what I asked?" Sasuke was silent for a long moment. "I don't know what I feel," he finally admitted. "I only know I can't stop thinking about her." Hinata nodded slowly. "Then perhaps you should stop pretending otherwise." She bowed and walked away, leaving Sasuke alone with his thoughts. That night, the news arrived. A messenger from the land of demons, exhausted and bloodied, collapsed at the palace gates. "Attack!" he gasped. "The demons, they're moving. The old one, awakened. Your people, in danger." Guards carried him inside. Physicians tended his wounds. And word spread through the palace like wildfire. The demons were coming. Sasuke heard the news in his chambers. For one terrible moment, his mind went blank. Kagome was out there. In the demon lands. With whatever horror had just awakened. He was on his feet before he knew what he was doing. Grabbing his sword. Strapping on armor. Moving toward the door. "Where do you think you're going?" His father stood in the doorway, flanked by guards. "To the demon lands," Sasuke said. "Our people are in danger." "Our people are here. In the palace. Safe." Fugaku's voice was hard. "You will stay where you belong. There's someone out there. Someone I don't care." Fugaku stepped forward. "You are the heir to the Uchiha clan. Your duty is here. With your family. With your future bride." Sasuke's hands clenched. "I don't have a future bride. Not yet." "Then you will choose one. Tonight." Fugaku's eyes were cold. "The Hyuga alliance is critical. With demons stirring, we need strong allies. You will marry Hinata Hyuga, and you will do it gladly." "No." The word hung in the air. Fugaku's face darkened. "No? I won't be a pawn anymore." Sasuke's voice was steady. "I won't marry someone I don't love just to strengthen your political position. If you want an alliance with the Hyuga, find another way. He pushed past his father and walked out. Guards moved to stop him. Fugaka's voice rose in command. But Sasuke was faster, stronger, more determined than any of them. He reached the stables in minutes. His horse, a new one, since he'd returned the stolen mare, was ready. He mounted and rode. Behind him, the palace erupted in chaos. Ahead of him, the demon lands waited. And somewhere out there, Kagome needed him. The demon army moved at night. Thousands of yokai, great and small, ancient and newborn, flowed across the land like a tide of darkness. They destroyed everything in their path. Villages burned. Forests fell. The earth itself seemed to cower before them. At their head, the Old One drifted. It had no physical form, not really. It was a presence, a force, a hunger given shape. Its eyes, hundreds of them, glowed in the darkness, searching for something. Searching for the power it had sensed. The power that felt so familiar. Naruto and Kagome reached the border just ahead of the demon tide. They were exhausted. Scratched. Bruised. But alive. We need to warn them, Naruto gasped, pointing at the human fortifications ahead. They don't know what's coming. They ran toward the border fort, shouting warnings. Soldiers scrambled. Officers shouted orders. Bells rang out across the night. But even as they prepared, Kagome felt it. The Old One was close. So close. She turned and looked back at the darkness. And saw eyes. Hundreds of eyes. All staring at her. The battle began at dawn. The demon army struck the border fort like a wave against rocks. Soldiers fought desperately, swords, spears, ninja techniques, anything that might slow the onslaught. Naruto was in his element. He moved through the chaos like a force of nature, shadow clones multiplying, Rasengan blazing. Demons fell before him, but more kept coming. Kagome fought beside him, her bow singing as arrow after arrow found its mark. Each shaft glowed with spiritual energy, purifying the demons it struck. But even together, they couldn't hold forever. The line was breaking. Sasuke arrived as the fort's main gate collapsed. He rode straight into the chaos, sword drawn, eyes blazing. Demons fell before him like wheat before a scythe. His Sharingan spun, predicting every attack, countering every strike. But he wasn't looking for demons. He was looking for her. He found her near the fort's center, fighting back to back with a blonde ninja he didn't recognize. Her face was streaked with dirt and blood. Her bow arm trembled with exhaustion. But she was alive. Kagome! She turned, eyes widening. Sasuke? What are you? No time. He reached her side, cutting down a demon that lunged at them. We need to get you out of here. I'm not leaving. She loosed another arrow. These people need help. The whole line is breaking. We can't hold. A roar cut him off. The ground shook. And the Old One appeared. It rose from the chaos like a mountain emerging from mist. Its eyes, thousands now, fixed on Kagome. You! It whispered. The voice was 1,000 voices, ancient and terrible. I know you. Your soul, so familiar. Kagome stared at it, frozen. Kikyo's soul. The Old One continued. Reincarnated. Reborn. The Shurkan no Tama calls to me from within you. Sasuke stepped in front of her. Stay back. The Old One laughed, a sound like breaking bones. Little human. You cannot protect her from me. No one can. It reached for them. And Naruto stepped between. Back off! He shouted. I won't let you hurt my friends! The Nine Tails chakra erupted around him, a cloak of crimson energy, tails forming behind him. The demons nearest him screamed and fled. The Old One paused. The fox. It murmured. So you carry a piece of the great beast. Interesting. It studied Naruto for a long moment. Then it laughed again. Even the fox cannot stop me, child. I am older than your beast. Older than your world. I have slept since before humans walked these lands. And now I wake. Why now? Kagome asked. Her voice was steady despite her fear. Why wake after all this time? The Old One's eyes focused on her. Because of you, it said. Your power. Your soul. The jewel you carry within you. It called to me across the centuries. Woke me from my slumber. Kagome's blood ran cold. I don't have the Shurkan no Tama. It was destroyed with. No. The old one drifted closer. The jewel was never truly destroyed. It exists within you. In your blood. In your soul. You are the jewel now. Sasuke grabbed Kagome's arm. We need to go. Now. But. Now. They ran. Behind them, the old one watched. Run, little ones, it whispered. Run as far as you like. I will find you. And when I do. It didn't finish. It didn't need to. The retreat was chaos. Soldiers fled in all directions. Demons pursued. The border fort burned behind them. Sasuke, Naruto, and Kagome stayed together, fighting their way through the chaos. They covered each other. Protected each other. Slowly, painfully, they made their way towards safety. Hours later, they collapsed in a small cave hidden in the hills. For a long time, no one spoke. Finally, Naruto broke the silence. So, that was intense. Sasuke stared at him. That's your comment? That was intense? What do you want me to say? It was a giant eyeball monster that wants to eat Kagome's soul. I don't have words for that. Despite everything, Kagome laughed. It was a weak laugh, shaky and exhausted. But it was real. Sasuke looked at her. Even covered in dirt and blood, even exhausted and terrified, she was beautiful. What do we do now? She asked. Sasuke was quiet for a moment. Then he said, we fight. How? That thing is ancient. Powerful. We can't. We can. Sasuke's voice was firm. Together. With help. The shinobi villages, the other clans, anyone who will stand with us. We're not alone in this. Naruto nodded. He's right. The Hokage will help. My friends will help. We'll find a way. Kagome looked at them, these two strange, brave, infuriating young men who had somehow become her allies. Her friends. Maybe more. We'll need information, she said slowly. About the old one. About its weaknesses. About why it wants me specifically. Your grandfather, Sasuke said. He knows things. Ancient things. He might have answers. Kagome nodded. Then we go back. To the shrine. To grandfather. To Kagaya, Sasuke added grimly. Kagome's expression hardened. Yes. To Kagaya. It was time to stop running. It was time to fight back. The shrine looked different when they returned. Not physically. The buildings were the same, the trees the same, the sacred Gashin Boku still towering over everything. But something had changed. The air itself felt different. Heavier. Darker. She knows we're coming, Kagome whispered. Sasuke's hand rested on his sword. Good. They walked through the main gate together, Kagome, Sasuke, and Naruto. Behind them, hidden in the shadows, waited reinforcements. Shinobi from Konoha. Samurai loyal to Sasuke. People who believed in their cause. The courtyard was empty. No servants. No guards. No worshippers. Just silence. And then, from the main hall, a voice. Welcome home, Kagome. Kagaya emerged from the shadows. She wore her priestess robes, but something was different. Her eyes glowed faintly. Her presence pressed against them like a physical weight. You've brought guests, she continued. The runaway prince. The Jinchuriki brat. How predictable. Where is my grandfather? Kagome demanded. Safe. For now. Kagaya smiled. He's been very helpful, actually. Telling me all sorts of interesting things about your family's history. About the Shurkan no Tama. About you. Kagome's hands clenched. Let him go. In time. First, we need to discuss the festival. The festival? Kagaya glided closer. The royal festival continues, even as we speak. Tonight, the prince is supposed to choose a bride. But instead, he's here. With you. How do you think his father will react to that? Sasuke stepped forward. I don't care how my father reacts. You should. Kagaya's smile widened. Because if you don't return to the palace tonight and choose Tsubaki as your bride, your father will disown you. You'll lose everything. Your title. Your inheritance. Your clan. I never wanted any of it. Perhaps. But Kagome's grandfather might have something to say about that. Kagaya produced a small bell from her sleeve, the same bell grandfather always carried. He's still alive. For now. But if you don't cooperate. Sasuke's jaw tightened. You're bluffing, Naruto said. You wouldn't kill him. He's your only leverage. Kagaya laughed. Bold words from a boy who carries a monster inside him. Tell me, Naruto Uzumaki, how does it feel to know that everyone you love will die because of what you are? Naruto's eyes flashed. Shut up. The nine tails inside you. The Shurikon no Tama inside Kagome. You're both monsters, really. Freaks. Outcasts. Kagaya's voice dripped with contempt. You think you can defeat me? You can't even defeat your own natures. Something snapped in Kagome. She stepped forward, and for the first time, power blazed from her. Not the gentle spiritual energy she usually wielded, but something fiercer. Something ancient. I am not a monster, she said quietly. I am not a freak. I am Kagome Higurashi, granddaughter of the Higurashi Shrine, niece of the great Miko Kikyo. And you are nothing but a thief wearing a priestess's robes. Kagaya's eyes widened. You think I don't know what you really are? Kagome continued. You're not human. You never were. You're a demon wearing human skin, using human magic, pretending to be something you're not. The courtyard went very still. Then Kagaya laughed. It was a terrible sound, ancient and cold and utterly without humanity. Clever girl, she said. I wondered how long it would take you to figure it out. Her form shifted, blurred, and suddenly she stood before them in her true shape, white hair flowing, horns rising from her forehead, eyes like pools of darkness. I am Kagaya Otsutsuki, she said. I have walked this world since before your ancestors crawled from the mud. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have tasted the souls of gods. And you insignificant insects, dare to challenge me? Yes, Kagome said. She raised her bow. And fired. The arrow blazed with light, pure spiritual energy, undiluted and absolute. It struck Kagaya's chest and exploded. The demon screamed. For the first time, she looked afraid. What followed was chaos. Naruto attacked with everything he had, shadow clones, Rasengan, the Nine-Tails chakra blazing around him. Sasuke's Sharingan spun, predicting Kagaya's every move, finding openings in her defenses. Kagome's arrows flew true, each one burning with purifying light. But Kagaya was ancient. Powerful. Cunning. She fought back with magic older than the shinobi villages, older than the clans, older than human civilization itself. Darkness flowed from her hands. Reality itself seemed to bend around her. The battle raged across the shrine grounds. Trees shattered. Buildings crumbled. The sacred Gashinboku groaned under the strain. And through it all, Kagome fought. She fought for her grandfather. For her mother. For her aunt's memory. For everyone Kagaya had hurt, and used and discarded. She fought for herself. Finally, she cornered Kagaya against the Bone Eater's well. It's over, Kagome said, her bow drawn, her arrow pointed at Kagaya's heart. Kagaya laughed weakly. Blood, black and thick, dripped from her wounds. You think killing me changes anything? The old one is awake. The demons are rising. You can't stop what's coming. Maybe not. But I can stop you. She released the arrow. It struck true. Kagaya fell backward into the well, her scream fading as she tumbled into darkness. Silence. Kagome stood at the well's edge, breathing hard. Her arms trembled. Her vision blurred. Then Sasuke was beside her, steadying her, holding her up. It's over, he whispered. You did it. Kagome shook her head. It's not over. She was right about that much. The old one is still out there. The demons are still rising. Then we'll face them together. Kagome looked at him. At Naruto, grinning despite his exhaustion. At the shinobi and samurai emerging from the shadows, victorious. Together, she repeated. And for the first time in years, she believed it. That night, they found grandfather alive in Kagaya's chambers. He was bruised and tired but unharmed. When he saw Kagome, he burst into tears. My brave girl, he sobbed. My brilliant brave girl. Kagome held him tight. Later, as the shrine began to recover, Sasuke found her sitting beneath the sacred Gashinboku. The festival, she said quietly. You missed it. I know. Your father will be furious. Probably. Kagome looked at him. Was it worth it? Sasuke sat beside her. Saving your life? Protecting your grandfather? Stopping a demon who wanted to destroy everything you love? He met her eyes. Yes. It was worth it. Kagome's heart beat faster. What happens now? She asked. Sasuke was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Now we prepare. The Old One is coming. The demons are gathering. There's a war ahead of us, a real war, bigger than anything we've faced. And after the war? He looked at her. Really looked at her. After the war? I don't know. But I'd like to find out. Together. Kagome smiled. It was small and uncertain, but it was real. Together, she agreed. Above them, the stars shone down on the shrine, on the sacred tree, the Bone Eater's well, the buildings slowly being repaired. On two lonely souls who had finally found each other. Epilogue: The Demon Prince's Secret. 3 months later, the alliance was formalized. Representatives from the shinobi villages, the noble clans, and the spiritual world gathered at the Higurashi Shrine. They came to sign treaties, share information, prepare for the war to come. But they also came for another reason. Prince Sasuke Uchiha stood before the assembled leaders, his expression as calm as ever. Beside him stood Kagome Higurashi, no longer a servant, but the recognized heir to the shrine's spiritual legacy. I have an announcement, Sasuke said. The crowd quieted. Many of you know that my father arranged a marriage for me. To Lady Hinata Hyuga. He glanced at Hinata, who nodded encouragingly. That arrangement has been mutually dissolved. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Instead, Sasuke continued, I have made my own choice. He turned to Kagome. I choose her. Kagome's face flushed. She hadn't expected this. They hadn't discussed it. But as she looked at Sasuke, at the certainty in his eyes, the hope hidden beneath his usual cool exterior, she knew her answer. Yes, she whispered. The crowd erupted. Some cheered. Others gasped. A few looked scandalized. A prince marrying a shrine maiden? Unheard of. But Sasuke didn't care. He took Kagome's hand and held it tight. Later, when the crowds had dispersed and they stood alone beneath the sacred tree, Kagome asked the question that had been bothering her. Why me? You could have chosen anyone. A princess. A noblewoman. Someone with power and connections. Sasuke was quiet for a moment. Because you're the only person who ever saw me, he finally said. Not the prince. Not the heir. Not the political pawn. Just me. Kagome's eyes glistened. And you're the only person who ever saw me, she replied. Not the servant. Not the victim. Just me. They stood together in the moonlight, two people who had found in each other what they had always been missing. Behind them, the sacred Gashinboku rustled softly, as if blessing their union. And somewhere in the distance, the Old One stirred. But that was a story for another day. For now, there was only this moment. This perfect, precious moment. Together.